Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The purpose of this webinar is to help you if you're considering applying for funding for our latest small grants round, opening next week on March the 28th. We will provide a brief introduction to the work of the Trust, eligibility for funding, and some guidance on how to put together an application. We will also run through some examples of small grants projects we have funded. Before we get properly underway, I'm just going to explain how the session is going to work. First of all, we have a presentation from myself, Louise Palomino, the Grants and Impact Director, and Tanya Kadir and Lindsay Eckley, our two grants officer. The presentation will last for approximately 20 to 25 minutes. Victoria Sinclair, our Administration and Information Officer, will then help facilitate a question and answer session for around 10 minutes. All in all, we anticipate the webinar will last for around 40 minutes. Feel free to submit your questions at any point, but please do so using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen and not the chat function. These will be monitored throughout and answered at the end. Last but not least, the webinar is being recorded and will be made available for you to view later at your leisure. Next slide, please. The Road Safety Trust is a registered charity and was set up in 2014. Our vision is for the UK to have zero road deaths and serious injuries. The way we contribute to this vision is by funding and promoting projects to make the UK roads safer. This includes practical measures, research, dissemination and education. So far, we have awarded around 6.4 million in grants to over 78 projects. And we're really pleased to now be the largest independent funder of road safety research and initiatives in the UK. Next slide, please. Since our first funding round was launched in 2015, we have run 3 different types of grants programs. These are small grants, theme grants, where we specify the topic, and open grants round, where projects can be for any road safety topic. Next slide, please. Really key to our small grants funding is making a difference to road safety in a very practical way. First launched in 2019, the programme is particularly suitable for local projects, which can then share their learning and make resulting tools or interventions available to other practitioners across the country. Their focus is on trialling, piloting, and evaluating ways of improving road safety, and generally between 10 and 50k of funding is available for projects for this round. Next slide, please. We also run another funding round in the autumn, and so the next one is due to open in autumn 2023. In this round, we are able to award larger grants of up to 300k or possibly more this year. This year, we have what we call an open round, and this is where applications can be for any road safety topic or issue. It may seem early to be thinking about this round, which is later in the year. However, bids can take a surprising amount of time to develop, including engaging with partners, so we recommend you start early. All our grants programs have 4 common purposes or objectives. These are to generate new knowledge about what works to save lives and prevent injury, translate ideas into new measures, influence road safety policy and practice, and support partnership working and collaboration. Over the whole portfolio of projects, we expect to fund a range which in combination cover all of these purposes. However, your project may focus on 1 or 2 of the first 3. All projects need to demonstrate a degree of partnership working or collaboration though. Next slide, please. So who can apply? To apply, you need to be based in the UK, and local public sector organisations, charities, and community interest companies are eligible. Further details about who is eligible are given in the guidance. Because this is designed to be a practically focused grant programme, we would like the impetus from the project to come from road safety practitioners mainly, This is why we're saying universities can apply, but it has to be in partnership with one of these other organisations. And if for whatever reason you want the university to be the accountable body or lead organisation for the grant, then this needs to be agreed with us before you apply. Next slide, please. In response to feedback and through analysing reasons for why some bids are not successful, we have redesigned the application form for small grants this year. This includes a workbook designed to guide applicants through the process and a definition sheet for key terms. It also includes examples of how to set out aims and objectives, outputs and outcomes, and some guidance on what we mean by innovative. Also included is a template to help applications work through the key definitions and process of setting aims and objectives. Next slide, please. An important criteria we have is that all projects should share their learning and make available to others any interventions or tools or resources produced. Grant funding is an opportunity to try things and learn if they work. And so we do ask our projects to demonstrate how they'll share learning, for example, through reports and practitioners' guides. We also ask you to think about how you will tell people about those tools. We have a partnership with Road Safety GB and host all project reports on a dedicated section of the Knowledge Centre. And many of our projects have also taken up the opportunity of presenting at RSGB conferences. If you're thinking of applying, a good test as to whether your project will be of interest to others in the sector, because even if it's a local project, are you developing or producing something of wider interest or applicability? And if not, it's unlikely to meet our criteria for funding. Next slide, please. Costs are obviously a very important part of your bid, and we ask for a budget as part of your application. Please make sure that this includes a good amount of details, such as rates and numbers of days for staff costs. We don't fund 100% of project costs, so you will need to find some other sources of funding. This can be from you as the applicant and can include in-kind contributions, such as your own officer's time. We only fund direct project costs for public bodies and universities, so we don't fund those additional overhead costs, such as a proportion of estate costs or management costs not directly involved in managing the project. Please refer to our guidance for further detail about these costs. The other thing to stress is that our funding's for project costs and not what we refer to as core costs, which are general organisational running costs. Finally, there's a free offer from us to provide funding for evaluation support, including up to 2 days training for staff, and you can apply for these costs as part of your application. Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Tanya Calder-Dodgson, and I work at the Road Safety Trust with Louise as a grants officer. Today, I'm going to share with you a small sample of the diverse projects we funded through the Small Grants Programme. The first project I want to talk about was awarded in March 2020 to Shiny Side Up. This was one of the 6 grants approved as part of the inaugural Small Grants Programme. Next slide, please. The objective of this project was to transform and refresh the existing offline Know the Dangers educational resource for motorcycle safety, using brand new 3D animation, and supports our grant objective, translate ideas into new measures. The videos are intended as a training aid in teaching organizations and will be freely accessible nationally on all devices. Each 20-second video uses 3D animation to bring a common collision scenario to life. And by providing multiple perspectives and the ability to show the build-up to a collision from different viewpoints, the new resource we hope should be more effective. At the Road Safety Trust, we're happy to collaborate to amplify impact. And in 2021, we awarded Shiny Side Up an additional £2,000 for an extensive social media campaign to launch the resources. This was followed by another £6,000 in early 2022 to evaluate the campaign and resources. With over 670,000 views, the evaluation showed that even a low-cost campaign can have significant reach, especially with target audiences. Audiences also exhibited good message recall and felt that social media was an appropriate channel for sharing road safety messages. Respondents found the resource to be engaging and reported an increase in knowledge. Next slide, please. I think you might find it useful to hear directly from Heidi Duffy at Shiny Side Up through this video.
Hello, my name is Heidi Duffy and I'm the facilitator for the Shiny Side Up partnership. This is a East Midlands motorcycle casualty reduction group and we celebrate 20 years in existence this year. In 2020, just at the start of the pandemic, the Road Safety Trust gave us a grant. With this, we were able to turn a paper-based resource, Know the Dangers, into a computer-generated series of animated films. These films, using Stats 19 data, showed the most common collisions that motorcyclists and drivers are involved in out on the busy roads. The grant enabled us to actually produce the films and also distribute them across the country. We got the initial grant, which actually was used to pay for the resource being made, and then an impact grant, which enabled us to do a social media campaign all over the country. We managed to achieve over 670,000 views on social media platforms, and we are currently doing an evaluation to find out how the messages were received and what difference they made to drivers and riders. The whole process of actually applying for the grant was relatively simple. And once we got the grant's manager, which was Tanya in our case, was very supportive and was there if I needed any help regarding the paperwork or reporting. I'm still in touch with Tanya and we're just doing the evaluation project. And overall, I can say that the Road Safety Trust really helped Shiny Side Up in producing a quality resource which has been seen by so many drivers and riders and hopefully influences their rider and driver behaviour going forward to reduce casualties. Thank you.
Next slide, please. The next project I want to talk about was delivered as a collaboration between Birmingham City Council and behavioural science consulting firm SOMO, and it generates new knowledge to tackle low seatbelt use. Next slide, please. This grant was also awarded in the inaugural small grants round. The pilots seek to test the hypothesis that culturally tailored and targeted messaging, co-designed with communities using insights from behavioral science, can improve seatbelt use in Birmingham's Pakistani and Bangladeshi communities and in turn reduce passenger casualty rates. The campaign was co-designed with young people aged 16 to 24 from the communities and tested the messaging for saliency, memorability, and potential to change behavior. Survey results showed that both tailored campaigns outperformed the national comparators on all outcomes, particularly with the target group. Emotional saliency, in particular, provided the strongest evidence for cultural tailoring. Co-designed posters were more memorable and could evoke stronger emotions in the identified cohort. The results also showed a significant association between the type of campaign and the intention to wear a seatbelt. We're excited to say that since then, we've just awarded an additional £25,000 to SOMO to evaluate the effectiveness of a real-world pilot based on the proof of concept developed in this project. Funds have already been secured via Transport for West Midlands for the campaign rollout. The campaign will broaden geography and reach and build on insights about social media preferences and earlier research so that the project will repurpose the photography-based assets to generate video content. The evaluation will then measure the impact of the Message Not Received online media campaign when it goes live in April 2023 to evaluate attention, effectiveness, and tailoring criteria. I'm now going to hand over to my fellow grant officer, Lindsay. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindsay and I am the newest grants officer for RST. I'll be taking you through the small grants awarded we awarded last year and to the end of the webinar. So last year, our small grants programme was very different to the previous years, and we decided to provide funding in 4 areas that were developed and funded in previous grant rounds. The reason for this was to further our strategic aims and around supporting funded projects on their journey from research through to practical implementation and scaling up for wider impact. The 4 areas we selected as topics were ones that either resulted in interventions with guidance for practitioners or in research which was ready to be further trialled, developed and applied in practical ways. The 4 areas were community corners, which was a local traffic calming intervention, mobile engaged, a review on ways to tackle mobile phone use by drivers, improved driver behaviour through mindfulness interventions, and targeting road injury prevention, or TRIP, a tool which used a new data to design road safety campaigns. Unfortunately, we didn't receive any applications to the TRIP area, but we did award grants for the other 3 topics that aligned particularly well with the practical implementation of the examples. Next slide, please. The original Community Corners project used a community-led approach of light touch psychological traffic calming techniques. Items such as planters and paint were used to create barriers to the line of sight, as well as physical obstructions which narrowed the road, all designed to encourage drivers to slow down. An award was given to Drummond Community Development Trust based near Stirling in Scotland, who represent the local resident needs in the village. They'll be working with the council and local community groups to implement street furniture and road design to slow traffic through the village that is on a popular holiday route. The project will use before and after speed surveys and traffic surveys to determine the effectiveness. Next slide, please. The researchers of Mobile Engage report identified a range of innovations being implemented across the UK to tackle the issue of mobile phone use while driving. This was brought together into a compendium. Through the small grants call in 2022, Road Safety Trust encouraged a trial of practical implementations that were highlighted in the content compendium, or carry out evaluations learning described in the compendium. The report highlighted the dangers of using a mobile phone with hands-free equipment in the car, which has been shown to be just as distracting and dangerous as using a handheld device. 2 grants were provided around this topic. The Kia Foundation and the Open University are using behaviour change interventions to change attitudes, awareness and intended behaviour of using hands-free mobile phones. Both of these projects were used before and after surveys to measure changes in their intended outcomes. Next slide, please. Mindfulness is defined as the act of focusing attention on the current moment, and public interest in mindfulness has soared in recent years, and research has shown that it improves attention, executive function, and working memory capacity. In road safety, the laboratory and on-road studies have explored the impact of mindfulness on driving behaviours such as distraction, cognitive overload, road rage and risky driving such as speeding. These behaviours have been shown to increase the rate of road traffic collisions. The British Horse Society received a grant to develop and test a video-based mindfulness training intervention to reduce anger amongst drivers who experience road rage when they encounter a cyclist or a horse rider on the road. The evaluation will be before and after of a survey of emotions evoked on seeing a vulnerable road user and the intention of using mindfulness behaviours when driving. Next slide, please. So this slide illustrates visually the variety of organisations that have received grants through the Road Safety Trust, from local authorities to universities to community and charitable organisations. Next slide, please. So where can you find further support with your application? Firstly, the best place to find information on our grants is to look at the small grants section of our website, where you'll find the current round details and reference documents. We highly encourage you to read the guidance for the round, as this is updated every year and ensure that you read through the grant criteria, which is important for your application. In our guidance, there is also a list of organisations who can help you with evaluation should you wish to apply for funding for evaluation training or support in your application. Our website also contains a dedicated page on previous small grants that have received our funding and a case study document that you can download. After the positive feedback we received on the one-to-one appointments we offered last year, we will again be holding these 20-minute one-to-one appointments for prospective clients, for prospective applicants, where a member of the grants team will be available to answer questions you may have about your idea, the criteria, or any application process. We will be sending out information on how you can book a one-to-one after this webinar, and you can also find the booking link on the small grant section of our website. Our general email can be used to ask specific questions, but please do bear in mind we're a small team and we all work part-time, so it may take a few days to respond to you. Next slide, please. So by now, I hope you're all eager to know the details of this year's grants application process and how you can submit your applications. We can only receive applications via the online portal. The link to the portal will be made available on our website when the round opens on Tuesday, the 28th of March. On the portal, you will need to register and set up an account and complete a short eligibility quiz. This quiz is designed to save you time in applying if your project is not eligible. The application window will close on the 4th of May, and you should hear a decision in July. Individual projects can apply for between £10,000 and £50,000, but the total budget we have set aside for this round is £180,000. The workbook Louise mentioned earlier will be made available on the website soon. This gives an idea of the application questions and to help you work up your application, although it is important to use the form on the online portal to submit your application. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for watching the webinar. We do hope it's been useful. And if you do put in an application, we wish you luck from all of us here at the Road Safety Trust.